Hi, this is Bill Hartzer, and this is the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer for Thursday, July 9th, 2020. And I have the pleasure of having my good friend Duane Forrester here from Yext. We're going to talk a little bit about search intent and site search and a couple things, and answering questions and how search engines generally understand the various questions and queries that we put into them. So welcome, Duane. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background. I know I know a little bit about you. I know, well, gosh, we've known each other probably since the early 2000s, but tell my audience a little bit about how long you've been in the industry and so forth, and what you do now.
Awesome. Well, Bill, first, thanks for having me on the show. It's fantastic to catch up with you again. As Bill had mentioned, we've been friends for almost 20 years now. My current role, I am Vice President of Industry Insights for Yext. I have a background. I built and ran webmaster tools at Bing. I ran the SEO program at MSN. I've written a couple of books on conversion optimization and making money online through McGraw-Hill. Used to work in online gambling, worked for Caesar's Palace, all kinds of background in there. Been an SEO for I think maybe 2, maybe 3 years longer than I've known Bill, because that's how we ended up connecting is the early days of everything. It's been an amazing industry to be a part of, and to see where we're at today is it's just incredible.
Yeah, in fact, we've come a long way. Even if you look at all industries and so forth, the internet is really just so young still, and we keep everybody keeps on innovating, and in another 5 years it even will be completely different.
Well, you and I have been talking about things like augmented reality and virtual reality for over a decade, and every year is the year it will be here, to the point where we just don't talk about it anymore, because on one level it is here, but it's not here on a wide level. And every now and then, I remember last year we were down in Florida for PubCon, and you were telling me about the new Google Maps features that did AR overlays for directions, and how, because you were so involved as a local guide, you had been invited in and you were showing it to me. And I was like, finally, this is what we need in mapping, right? We just need, show me the damn arrow. I don't need anything else. I just need the arrow, straight ahead, turn right, and that's it, and we're starting to see the beginning of that, but we're seeing it in ways, certainly in ways you and I never forecasted. If you look at the advent of digital assistants, and you look at smart speakers and all of that stuff. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I might be the last person who has done this, but I recently hooked up an Amazon Fire Stick to my TV, and because I was just like, oh, I don't care, I don't need that. I've got the big cable packages, blah blah blah, and all of this, and now I don't know how to live my life without this thing. And walking the dogs this morning, talking with my wife, and I'm like, I actually don't remember the last time I watched live television. My DVR, yes, for programs that I specifically want. But everything else is me consuming all of my favorite content from YouTube. And Lord help my wife if I can figure out a way to get TikTok up on that thing, because then that will be my every evening. We'll be sitting there watching that. And it's just incredible where we're at today. And yet still so much opportunity for businesses across all levels.
Sure. So, my goal is actually, still looking at search, and, we have basically, we have the traditional Google search and as well as, obviously YouTube search and so forth. And we come back to, the search engines actually have, over the years, I remember years ago, we just put in our keywords in the keywords meta tag, and we mentioned it, we were talking about keyword and so forth, but now it's totally changed. Now the search engines, Bing and Google primarily, really understand a lot more about us, and they're trying to get us to not just put in a keyword, but encourage us to ask a lot more questions. And so we have people also asked, and obviously you put in a keyword, home inspector, home inspectors, or criminal defense lawyers, or whatever the query is, and you get this people also asked that is a list of questions. So people also asked, how do I hire a home inspector, or how much does a home inspection cost, or how do I find the best criminal defense lawyer, so a little bit, the basics for small business. I had earlier I had a client who emailed me and said, okay, well, we need some more blog post ideas for this month. And my initial thinking is, okay, well, we go back to, last month we kind of did some FAQ questions, and, and we looked at these people also asked, and trying to create some content around those, so what is so if we've done that for 2 or 3 months, or, been working on those questions, and we feel like we've answered all the questions, is there and we have traditional keyword research, right, which is actually comes back to, you put in you put a keyword into, your topic into something like SEMrush, or, Google Keyword Planner, and you get back, how many people search per month, it's the basic keyword research. But we get into things like, start these questions and so forth. What kind of is the next step? Is there another opportunity out there for us to even get more, content ideas, right?
Yeah, I mean, I feel this pain, right, Bill? Because anytime you're going to talk about content, you're immediately staring at a wall. It's inevitable. Yep. Whether the wall is close to you or farther away from you is the only part of the equation that you haven't solved for yet, but you were going to hit that wall. Your keyword research, with the state of tools and data sharing today, limited, the envelope is defined, let's say. It may be larger, it may be smaller, but it's defined, and eventually you do hit the edge of it. And the question then becomes, how do I make this more three-dimensional? So a couple of things you can be doing. One, obviously, and this is old school and a bit arcane, but checking your log files, finding out what people are doing, where they're coming in, where they're leaving, what they're engaging with. Looking at data around time engaged on your site and what they are interested in from you. And does that match your expertise? So if the person is only interested in a visual inspection of their home, then, is that what your expertise is in? And I know this firsthand, having just had a visual inspection done of our home, because we're refinancing our mortgage, because why not? And so I was stunned when the inspector parked in front of my home and looked at it from across the street, took a couple of photos, and was done. And yet I'm looking at that saying, well, you could have come into the backyard and seen the hot tub and the workshop and the outdoor kitchen, and because I'm thinking that would add value to my property's assessment, but this is the stuff I don't know about home inspecting. I'm looking at it from my lens as the homeowner, saying I want the most value. And I'm assuming that means this person is going to put hours of their time into understanding this. What I don't understand as the average homeowner is that most of this stuff is formulaic. Our entire neighborhood, my home, is one of maybe 100 of the similar footprint in the neighborhood. And they've all been, this is what they were built with when they were built new. All of that is public record. This is when they generally got updated. Again, public record. So they have everything they need about the property to do their job. But if I don't know that about you, I'm kind of looking at you as the home inspector saying, well, that's pretty lazy. That doesn't feel very good. And so there's stuff about the work you're doing that I wouldn't know. And that is how you can expand. So this specialist knowledge, which to you doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? Like, Bill, when you and I talk about SEO, we do not talk about meta tags, and we don't talk about URL structure and stuff like that, because we've talked it to death. It's something that has to be done and dealt with, but we assume that it is being dealt with as a normal part of SEO today.
Sure.
Now, we may talk about things like, what is structured data? Is it applicable in this case? What are the benefits for the work being done to implement structured data? We may be talking about being secure, being mobile friendly, being responsive, what all these things look like, the workload behind them. Those are more of the front end conversations in SEO today. And so if you're the homeowner and you're the home inspector, the inspector would know, here's how I do my job. And we follow a similar pattern that all inspectors follow. And this allows us, in the age of coronavirus, to not interrupt your space, to respect your distance, and still give you a good assessment. Because hand in the air, the assessment we got for our property, I love it. It's up. I'm happy. So it worked for me, but I don't know how it worked for me. And if you want that expertise, go ahead and explain what you did that got me to where I'm at. And I'm a much happier consumer, which then means I'm going to give you a better review, and that has its own thing. But if you really want to dive into stuff, if you really want to understand it, I'm going to recommend something that people often overlook and is generally regarded as part of a product that still needs a lot of work, doesn't function very well. It's your site search. There's a lot of value to be found inside your site search. We at Yext, we have a product that's a machine learning, AI-driven site search product. And what we're finding is clients are seeing massive increases in engagement, like sub 1 minute becomes 6 to 7 minutes of engagement when they come through that search box. Because instead of the customer coming in and saying, click on Google, over to your website. No, that's not what I want. Go back to Google, go down to another result. Give Google all the signals that that first result didn't satisfy them. So now Google is thinking, maybe I shouldn't rank that as high next time. Instead of all of that, what you get is click on Google, go over to your website, and then get totally lost in all of the information you have. And even when the website does not have an answer, the back end of the system is popping out what the query was. Now, let's talk about queries for a second. You and I probably suffer from the same thing, Bill. We reduce everything to keywords, and it doesn't matter what it is. Like, I will have entire conversations in my head where it's only the keywords that are germane to the conversation. And then when I start talking to someone about it, I feel like it's taking forever to have the conversation, because in my mind, the conversation was 6 words, the keywords. And in reality, the conversation is an entire paragraph of 40 words and sentences and everything. And so I wonder if I'm becoming a robot. I think maybe I am. And I'm kind of okay with that, But the reality here is that as when we grow up, we go through school, we're taught how to communicate, right? Obviously, stumbling around like this, some people would wonder if I was taught how to communicate. But we learn how to speak, we learn how to write, we learn how to ask questions, how to form them, what they mean, the syntax, the vocalizations, all of that. And we translate that when we type into a keyword box. And now, with smart speakers and digital assistants, we are talking more of our questions. And Google is seeing that, and Bing is seeing that, and Amazon sees that, and everyone sees that. And when you go to those tools like, peoplealsoask.com or whatever, they will show you, how do I tie a bow tie? And it's a full question, just minus the question mark at the end, because we don't need that. We understand the question by the word how. And yet that entire phrase is there, not tie a bow tie, because it's illustrative of the fact, the intent that the customer has, that they wish to learn how to do this. So when you understand this and you are able to answer that question, you become the authority for that business. And so when that person comes in to your search experience and they ask that question, most search systems today are still a direct lookup. If you don't have a perfect match on the phrase, then they come back with a mishmash of random stuff that's related and it's not a good fit. Consumer still bounces away from that. But if you've got a good system and you're able to directly answer a question, a great example is Bill is, I'm looking for an energy efficient fridge, and Duane is looking for an energy efficient refrigerator. The site search system should know that's the exact same question. There is no difference. It's all one, and there is one answer, and this is the answer. How you structure the answer page, entirely up to you. You can embed stuff on the page. You can give a link to click on, whatever you think works best. I know what works best in my testing But again, it's up to the business to make their own call on it. But there's a lot of value in there. I can't name the name of the company, but if I did say it, Bill, you'd know who it was. You'd know the person I'm talking to. I had a conversation with him last year, and we talked about site search just in general terms. And he told me that he had to hire somebody to run his SEO program because he took over site search as a kind of stretch goal the year before. And he found $7 million in incremental revenue for his business just in the queries that were put into the search box. Now, to be clear, that does not mean that he had answers for those questions. It meant that the queries that people were entering that were not being answered by this company were worth $7 million a year in incremental revenue. So they said, well, let's answer all the questions and see what happens. They got rankings for hundreds of new keywords that they had never thought of, things that never came up in their keyword research, areas that were kind of tangential or secondary to what the topic was, suddenly became the third largest driver of new pipeline acquisition for their product. And they were like, we never would have thought of this, you know? So there's a lot of value in there. I've seen it firsthand, people entering data in the systems that we manage, and what, like, I'm looking at it saying, I don't understand what the point of this query is, but I wasn't taking a large enough view. You know, a great example, the state of New Jersey has a COVID-19 website, and my company powers that system, the answers behind it. And people were asking about fishing licenses and if it was safe to go fishing and these kinds of questions. And we were scratching our heads. We were like, well, this is all about COVID. This is about like not getting sick and staying safe and all of this, right? Like, what are you talking about fishing? What we didn't realize was the week following when we saw the queries start, the official fishing season was supposed to open in the state. And so people wanted to know, could they get licenses? And if they didn't have a license, would there be a grace period because they couldn't go to the store to get a license? And all of these different things, you know, is it safe to be on the lake with COVID and all of this? And suddenly it became a system where it was, oh, wait, we had all of these queries and they had hundreds of questions. And within 24 hours, the content team had spun up answers because out of the hundreds of queries, a lot of them were duplicates. So they were able to whittle it on down. I think it was like 60 or 80 new pieces of content they created. And they answered all the questions. And then suddenly everybody was super happy because they had clarity on it. They had the answer to the question. And so services like that, just your internal site search, if you do nothing else on your website, give that box more square footage on your web page. Give it a chance to capture that. Because like I mentioned, even if you don't have the answer for it, even if your results are kind of bad, you'll see the queries and you'll know exactly what to answer questions around. And you can use that wherever you want. A dedicated page to it if it's a strong enough draw. And then on that page, maybe it's, here's my answer, whatever the form of the answer is. It could be you record a video answering the question, pump out a transcript from that, proofread, rewrite it, edit it, put that out as your long form content, create a bullet point list at the top of the page, and now you've got a resource page for that element. Or it could just be that it's a paragraph that resides on another page. Whatever, that's up to you. But getting around that wall, that's what this site search engagement can really help you with.
Yeah, I mean, you'll find also, you know, just by even just looking at those queries that there may even be, there could be potentially additional services that people are looking for that may, that, you know, you have not thought of, or kind of a spin-off of your current, you know, current service or products. They could be looking for certain products in a certain color or a certain size that you didn't even know that people are looking for.
It could be anything. It could be that in your area, when people are looking for doing home inspections, I live in Southern California, so it's completely common to not only get a home inspection done, but to get an HVAC inspection done. And so you may not have that expertise. You might not have the accreditation for it, but that doesn't stop you from approaching another company and partnering with them and saying, let's do lead sharing on this. So when somebody comes to me for a home inspection, I recommend you for HVAC. And if this works out well, you could run common billing on it. So when they book the appointment for the home inspection, they're also booking the appointment for HVAC at the same time. We book the appointments whenever, it doesn't matter, right? You manage your business how you need to, but it's about that attachment to more leads, more pipeline, more revenue. And, to your point, Bill, I could easily see if we take this, and you start spreading it around to different industries, I could easily see companies saying, wow, there's a lot of people who are looking for my product, but are also looking for this product. I need to stock that product. Or I do this service, but it turns out that this service, a lot of people feel is complementary, or at the very least, they do the same thing at the same time, And so I should start offering that service, right? It's like I go in for an oil change. All I do is oil changes. Who knew at the same time everybody wanted their air filter changed? Now I offer air filter servicing as well. Like all of these options become available for your business. And it's a huge opportunity, because then it's not just about, like, can we write content? What are my keywords that I'm going to write content around? It's about truly uncovering the intent of customers. And when you have that, you know exactly how to position your product in front of them. And that's what the search engines are actually looking for too. So suddenly you become a better answer for them as well as for consumers.
Yeah, and actually, it is another option. So, we talk about this dwell time, and what one of the important things is people do a search at Google or Bing. They do the search and they hit your site. And if there is no site search, if they can't search for your site, they probably will hit that back button and go back to the search engine.
Yep.
So that's another way of just giving that more time for them, and the more pages and the longer they spend on on your site versus somebody else's site is actually ideal.
Absolutely. I mean, think of it this way. You walk into a new store. It's not possible when you walk through the door to immediately catalog and comprehend everything you're seeing in that store. It's a new store. It's going to take you time, probably 4 or 5 visits to discover everything that's available to you in that new store. And if the first time you walk into that store, the very first thing you see is a counter in front of you and a blank wall behind it with a doorway, and it doesn't occur to you, or nobody tells you to go behind the counter and through the door to see the stock that we have, you may walk out thinking, well, there's nothing in that store for me. That's what it's like when you hit a website in a lot of cases. You hit the page and go, that's not what I want, for whatever reason. You were in the mood with your coffee on Saturday morning to read, and what popped up was a video. Now, meanwhile, your wife and kids and dogs are all still asleep in bed. It's 5:30 in the morning. You don't want the volume up, waking people up. So you're like, no video, back. Well, that moment of time you spent there not consuming everything is all the judgment that Google needs to say, you know what, that's not a good answer. And so then the next time, that page may not rank as high. Now, again, this isn't a one-off thing. It happens over, dozens, tens, hundreds, thousands, millions of instances. But you're not the only one encountering that at any given time. So it could easily happen to businesses that they get caught up in this. And so having that site search option, that's huge. I mean, personally, I am such a fan of it that I'm saying it needs to be side to side across the top of your website. Nice big box. And when you talk to people, whether it's designers or UX or SEOs, everyone's fighting for all the pixels. Everyone's like, faster load times and shorter this, and then don't put this below the fold, and now we have mobile and all of this. And I'm telling you, sticky still matters. And having a good on-site search experience, not just where it's positioned and how large it is and how easy it is to type something in and hit go, but the answers it brings back, that really is what will change your fortunes. And it's big. I can tell you that, right? I mean, this is essentially what the search engines are doing. And, on one level, you got to ask yourself, like, why would I keep giving my customers over to Google to have them answer questions about me from a third party when I can just capture them and answer everything for them on my website, and then they bookmark me and they never leave me? That feels a lot better to me as a business owner.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly is fairly easy to implement. There's already a site search, a function, in WordPress and a lot of sites. Obviously, you can look at Yext's option that Yext has. But yes, there are like I said, I know a lot of sites who use use WordPress, and it's fairly easy to implement. There are plugins and so forth, but there's also just a basic functionality that kind of like a widget that you can add to the sidebar or some, footer or header or whatever. So,
I mean, step one, get yourself some site search, because far too many businesses don't have it. They have it, but they bury it in their option menu as a icon that someone has to take multiple steps to discover and then open up. I hate to break it to you, but nobody loves you that much that they're going to put that much effort into discovering where it is. Make it easy. Big spot right at the top. Everybody's used to the open field that Google and Bing have. Everyone understands this. Facebook has it across the top. It's the top of Amazon. Don't reinvent that wheel. Just put it across the top, make it easy and identifiable. And then from there, you can start looking at, okay, am I running a Chevy or am I running a Cadillac here? The options are up to you. And ultimately, when you start getting into that higher end, we're talking about machine learning. We're talking about building your knowledge graph. We're talking about AI powered. It knows the answer. It learns from questions and then suggests content along the way. The entry level for these things will be just pure database lookup, but it doesn't stop you from creating a knowledge graph, identifying all your products and services, all of the attributes about them, mapping all of the possible ways to ask questions about those, and mapping each one of those variations of questions to that answer to make it trigger. It's a bunch of work, but you can do it. And then suddenly you'll start seeing value coming out of that. Because if nothing else, just the reporting that you get back when people enter the queries, even if it does not work, that alone can start shedding light on areas where content creation starts to flourish. So it's a beautiful cycle once you get it up and running.
Yep. All right, I'm just about out of time for this afternoon. So how do we get in touch? Obviously, you work for Yext, so it's yext.com. But also, how do we get in touch with you, Duane Forrester?
I am pretty much everywhere. You can type me into a search engine and I'll be on the first page. You can hit me at Duane Forrester on Twitter. I'm available on LinkedIn. Folks can find me on Facebook. I've got Instagram up and running. I'm available anywhere. And if you're a reasonable human, I'm going to connect with you. No question.
Sure. Sounds great. That's
Cool.
good, Duane. This has been the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer and my special guest, Duane Forrester, this afternoon. Thanks again, Duane. And we'll see you online. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.